The Galactic Council chamber fell into unprecedented silence as Ambassador Krulnoth of the Etherian Collective finished reading the report. His translucent form flickered with nervous energy, casting rainbow patterns across the crystalline walls. Around the vast circular table, representatives from 47 species sat in stunned contemplation of what they had just learned. "Impossible," rumbled Warlord Thax, his massive exoskeleton creaking as he shifted position. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered half a dozen star systems in the past century, yet even his confidence seemed shaken. No species maintains a perfect border for 300 years. There are always incursions, always exceptions. "The data is irrefutable," Krulnoth replied, his voice carrying harmonics of dread. "Since first contact with humanity in 2387, not a single non-human vessel has crossed into their designated territory and returned. Not one." Elder Sixtal, the ancient machine intelligence representing the synthetic concordate, processed the information with clinical precision. Her optical sensors adjusted with mechanical clicks as she analyzed the data streams. Query: Define returned. Perhaps these vessels were simply detained or redirected? Negative. Krulnoth's form brightened with emphasis. "We tracked 14,726 unauthorized incursions over 3 centuries. Ships, probes, even quantum-entangled surveillance particles. Every single object that crossed the human boundary simply vanished. No distress signals, no debris fields, no trace energy signatures. Complete erasure from existence." The chamber erupted in concerned chatter across dozens of languages and communication methods. Bioluminescent patterns flashed in panic, electromagnetic fields fluctuated with anxiety, and harmonic frequencies wavered with uncertainty. The humans had been quiet neighbors for centuries, maintaining minimal diplomatic contact while steadily expanding their territory through seemingly peaceful colonization. Most species had assumed they were simply isolationists. "Perhaps," suggested Councillor Vexara of the Hive Minds, her collective consciousness speaking through thousands of interconnected voices, "they possess defensive technology beyond our understanding. A perfect stealth and capture system." "That was our initial hypothesis," Krulnoth admitted, his glow dimming, "until we discovered the Meridian incident." A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a star system at the edge of human space. The assembled delegates recognized it immediately, the former territory of the Vorthak hegemony, an aggressive militaristic species that had mysteriously vanished overnight 50 years ago. The Vorthak launched a full-scale invasion fleet against human space, Krulnoth continued. 2,000 warships, backed by orbital bombardment platforms and reality-warping superweapons. They broadcasted their intentions across all frequencies, declaring humans to be weak primitives ripe for conquest. Elder Sixtal's optical array focused intently on the display. Result: total fleet annihilation within standard engagement parameters. Negative. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. The fleet crossed into human space and vanished. But 6 months later, every single Vorthak world simply emptied. 15 billion individuals, gone overnight. Their cities remained intact, their technology undamaged, but not a single living Vorthak could be found anywhere in the galaxy. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the chamber's environmental systems seemed to hold their breath. Warlord Thax's claws scraped against the table surface. Genocide? Mass evacuation? What happened to them? Unknown, Krulnoth replied. But 3 days after the Vorthak disappeared, we received a message from human diplomatic channels. A simple statement: the Vorthak have been relocated to ensure galactic stability. They are alive and well in their new environment. Relocated? Councillor Vexara's Thousands of voices spoke in perfect unison. To where? The humans provided no additional information. When pressed for details, they simply repeated that the Vorthak was safe and that further inquiry was unnecessary. Since then, the former Vorthak systems have been marked as quarantine zones by human authorities. Dr. Yeathmole, the crystalline representative of the Academic Federation, resonated with frequencies of scientific curiosity mixed with fear. What if we demanded an inspection? Surely galactic law. There is no galactic law that applies to humans, interrupted Admiral Korth of the Stellar Navy. They never signed the Galactic Convention. They exist outside our legal framework by choice. The realization settled over the assembly like a cold fog. Humanity had spent 3 centuries quietly positioning themselves beyond the reach of galactic governance, while demonstrating an ability to make entire civilizations disappear without violence, without evidence, without explanation. We need to consider the implications, Elder Sixtel stated with mechanical precision. If humans can relocate hostile species at will, what prevents them from relocating any of us? Krell Noth's form pulsed with dim acknowledgement. That question has kept the Etherian High Command awake for months. We believe the answer lies in humanity's apparent code of ethics. They seem to intervene only when directly threatened or when a species becomes what they term galactically destabilizing. And what determines that classification? Warlord Thax demanded. Unknown. But analysis of human historical records suggests they evaluate species based on complex psychological and sociological algorithms. They appear to predict aggressive expansion, xenocide potential, and threat to overall galactic peace centuries in advance. The chamber fell quiet again as the delegates contemplated this revelation. Humanity wasn't just isolationist, they were gardeners, quietly pruning species they deemed dangerous to the galaxy's long-term stability. There's something else, Kronoth added, his voice barely audible. Our deepest intelligence networks suggest that humans don't just relocate hostile species. They relocate them to pocket dimensions, artificially created universes where those species can live out their aggressive impulses without harming others. Pocket dimensions? Dr. Yeathmole's crystal structure vibrated with disbelief. That level of reality manipulation would require technology beyond theoretical possibility. Unless, Elder Sixtail interjected, they didn't develop the technology themselves. What if they acquired it from previous species they encountered? What if every vanished civilization in human space contributed to their capabilities? The implication hung heavy in the recycled air. Humanity might not be conquerors in the traditional sense, but they had become something far more unsettling: cosmic curators who decided which species deserved to remain in the primary universe. As the session concluded, each delegate carried the same unspoken understanding. The galaxy's longest peace in recorded history wasn't the result of diplomatic achievement or natural balance. It was the product of a species so advanced, so quietly powerful, that they could reshape reality itself to maintain order. Outside the council chambers, trade routes continued to flow, colonies expanded, and civilizations grew, all under the watchful, invisible guardianship of neighbors who had never once raised their voice in anger, but whose very existence had become the galaxy's greatest source of existential terror. Humanity had achieved what no empire ever could: absolute peace through the mere possibility of absolute power.